They're charming. They're attentive. They make you feel like you're the center of the universe until you're not. And by then, you're already trapped. Narcissists don't announce themselves. They infiltrate your life slowly, methodically, until one day you wake up and realize you don't recognize yourself anymore. You've been manipulated so subtly, you didn't even know it was happening. The gaslighting, the love bombing, the silent treatment, these aren't random behaviors. They're calculated tactics designed to break down your sense of reality. Control, isolate, dominate. Today, we're exposing every single one of them. Because once you see the pattern, they lose their power over you. This isn't just information, it's your armor. Stay until the end, because the last tactic is the one most people never see coming. Love bombing. In the beginning, they're perfect. Almost too perfect. They text you constantly, shower you with compliments, make you feel like you've finally found someone who truly understands you. This is love bombing, and it's the narcissist's most powerful weapon. Here's how it works. They study you. They pay attention to your insecurities, your desires, your unfulfilled needs. Then they become exactly what you've been looking for. The narcissist doesn't love you. They love the control they gain by making you love them. Research shows that love bombing activates the same dopamine pathways as addictive substances. You become chemically dependent on their attention. And that's exactly the point. They're not building a relationship. They're building dependency. They create an emotional debt you can never repay. The intensity feels like passion. It feels like finally being seen. But genuine love builds slowly. It doesn't overwhelm, it stabilizes. If someone is giving you everything before they even know you, ask yourself, what are they really after? But love bombing is just the beginning. Because once they have you hooked, the real manipulation starts. Gaslighting. You remember the conversation clearly. You know what they said. But now they're looking at you like you're crazy. That never happened. You're imagining things. You're too sensitive. This is gaslighting, a psychological manipulation technique designed to make you question your own perception of reality. The term comes from a 1944 film, where a husband systematically makes his wife believe she's going insane. The narcissist uses gaslighting to gain absolute control over the narrative. If they can make you doubt your own memory, your own judgment, your own sanity, they become the only reliable source of truth. Deny, deflect, distort. Studies in psychological abuse show that gaslighting victims often develop anxiety, depression, and complex PTSD. They lose trust in themselves. They start depending on the abuser to tell them what's real. The gaslighter's goal is not to win an argument. It's to make you incapable of having one. If you find yourself constantly apologizing for things you don't think you did wrong, or questioning memories you were certain of, pay attention. Your reality is being rewritten. And speaking of rewriting reality, there's another tactic that works hand in hand with gaslighting. Projection. They accuse you of being selfish when they're the ones who only think about themselves. They say you're manipulative while they're the ones pulling every string. They claim you're cheating while they're the ones hiding their phone. This is projection, and it's one of the narcissist's most disorienting tactics. They project their own darkness onto you, so they never have to face it. Carl Jung extensively studied projection as a defense mechanism. The narcissist cannot tolerate their own flaws, their own shame, their own ugliness, so they transfer it onto you. Suddenly, you're the problem. You're the toxic one. You're the one who needs to change. This creates a psychological trap. You spend all your energy defending yourself against accusations that were never about you in the first place. Meanwhile, their actual behavior goes unexamined. Blame, shift, escape. The key is recognizing when criticism feels completely disconnected from reality. When someone accuses you of something that makes no sense, consider that they might be describing themselves. But projection is just one way they avoid accountability. Wait until you see what they do when you actually try to hold them to a standard. Word salad. You try to have a simple conversation. You bring up a legitimate concern, and 30 minutes later you're completely lost. How did we get here? What were we even talking about? You're exhausted, frustrated, and somehow you ended up apologizing. Welcome to word salad, the narcissist's verbal weapon of mass confusion. It's a deliberate technique to derail any productive conversation. They throw in circular arguments, topic changes, irrelevant accusations, and past grievances. They contradict themselves within the same sentence. They use your words against you in ways that make no logical sense. Never argue with someone whose goal is not to understand you, but to exhaust you. The purpose isn't communication, it's domination. If they can make every conversation so painful and confusing that you simply give up, they win. You stop bringing up problems. You stop expressing needs. You become manageable. They weaponize language to silence you completely. Researchers studying coercive control have documented this pattern extensively. The victim learns that addressing issues leads to more pain than staying silent. So they stay silent. Confuse, exhaust, control. If this sounds familiar, know this. The confusion isn't in your head. It's by design. But there's an even more cruel tactic they use when words aren't enough. Silent treatment. One moment everything seems fine. The next, they've disappeared. They won't respond to your messages. They won't look at you. They pretend you don't exist and they won't tell you why. The silent treatment is psychological warfare disguised as passivity. It triggers some of the deepest fears we carry as social beings. The fear of abandonment, of rejection, of not existing to those we love. Abandoned. Neuroscience has shown that social rejection activates the same brain regions as physical pain. The narcissist knows this intuitively. By withdrawing their presence, they are essentially inflicting invisible wounds. Silence isn't empty. It's full of answers the narcissist refuses to give. And here's the trap. You start scrambling. You apologize for things you didn't do. You try to figure out what went wrong. You do anything to restore connection, and that's exactly what they want. Your desperation, your compliance. The silent treatment trains you to fear their disapproval. It conditions you to prioritize their emotional state over your own boundaries. They punish you with absence until you'll accept anything just to have them back. This brings us to another manipulation that plays on the same fear, but works in the opposite direction. Triangulation. They casually mention their ex. They talk about a coworker who really appreciates them. They tell you about someone who is just so understanding. And suddenly you feel small, replaceable, like you need to try harder. This is triangulation, the deliberate introduction of a third party to create jealousy, competition, and insecurity. Divide, compare, conquer. The narcissist positions themselves at the center of attention from multiple sources. They feed off the drama, the rivalry, the validation. They pit people against each other while appearing innocent. You're not competing for love, you're being used as a supply source. Research on narcissistic abuse shows that triangulation serves multiple purposes. It keeps you anxious and off balance. It makes you work harder to prove your worth. It gives them an endless supply of narcissistic fuel. Triangulation is not about the third person. It's about controlling you. They might use exes, family members, friends, or complete strangers. The person doesn't matter, the effect does. You're supposed to feel threatened. You're supposed to compete. And most terrifyingly, they often manufacture these situations from nothing. If you find yourself constantly worried about your position in their life, constantly compared to others, recognize the game. But now we come to the tactic that makes leaving nearly impossible. Hoovering. You finally got out. You set boundaries. You started healing, and then they're back. Suddenly they've changed. They miss you. They realize their mistakes. They need you. They can't live without you. This is hoovering, named after the vacuum brand because they're trying to suck you back in. Trapped. The timing is never random. Hoovering usually happens when you're finally moving on, when you've found happiness, when you've shown you can exist without them. They sense their control slipping, and they deploy every weapon in their arsenal. Promise, beg, return. They might send heartfelt messages. They might show up at your door. They might use mutual friends to reach you. Sometimes they'll even threaten self-harm to trigger your caretaking instincts. Hoovering is not about wanting you back. It's about not wanting you to be free. The promises feel real because in that moment, they believe them too. But the pattern always repeats. Studies show that trauma bonds actually strengthen each time you return to an abusive relationship. Every time you go back, the hooks go deeper into your psyche. The cycle of abuse, idealize, devalue, discard, hoover, continues until you break it completely. But here's the darkest truth about narcissistic manipulation that most people never understand. Trauma bonding. Why do people stay with narcissists? Why do they go back? Why can't they just leave? The answer isn't weakness or stupidity, it's brain chemistry. Trauma bonding is a neurological phenomenon that creates addiction-level attachment to an abuser. Your brain literally becomes chemically dependent on the cycle of abuse and intermittent reinforcement. Here's how it works. The narcissist alternates between cruelty and kindness in unpredictable patterns. One day they are cold and critical. The next day they are the most loving person you've ever met. This unpredictability triggers your brain's reward system in the same way gambling does. Trauma bonds feel like love. They're actually fear dressed in intimacy. The relief you feel when they're kind again, that rush of gratitude, of hope, releases dopamine. Over time, you become addicted to the cycle itself. Fear, hope, repeat. This explains why leaving feels physically impossible, why you experience withdrawal symptoms, why logic and reason fail against the pull to return. You're not choosing to stay, you're biologically compelled to. Understanding trauma bonding is the first step to breaking it. You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're experiencing a documented psychological phenomenon. But now, the tactic that ties everything together. Identity erosion. At some point, you look in the mirror and don't recognize yourself. Your hobbies, gone. Your friends, distant. Your opinions, you're not sure what they are anymore. You've become an extension of them, existing only in relation to their needs, their moods, their approval. This is identity erosion, and it's the cumulative effect of all the tactics we've discussed. Erased. It doesn't happen overnight. It's death by 1,000 cuts. Each criticism, each manipulation, each moment of control chips away at who you are. They don't destroy you in a day. They slowly replace you with themselves. Psychologists studying coercive control have found that victims often lose their sense of self so completely that they can't imagine life without the abuser. The narcissist becomes their entire frame of reference. The narcissist's goal is not to defeat you. It's to absorb you. You forget what you like. You forget what you believe. You forget who you were before them. And this is exactly where they want you, completely dependent, completely controlled, completely theirs. Diminish, replace, control. But here's what they don't want you to know. And this is why you need to watch until the end. Breaking free. Everything they've done, the love bombing, the gaslighting, the silent treatments, the trauma bonding, it all has one purpose: to make you believe you can't survive without them. And that is the biggest lie of all. You existed before them. You had dreams before them. You had a self before them. And that self is still there, buried but not destroyed. Breaking free starts with one radical act: trusting your own perception again. Your reality is valid, even when they tell you it isn't. Research on narcissistic abuse recovery shows that healing is possible, but it requires complete no contact in most cases. Every interaction, every text, every meeting reactivates the trauma bond. Recovery from narcissistic abuse is not about getting over them. It's about getting back to yourself. You need to rebuild your support system. Reconnect with the friends and family they isolated you from. Work with a therapist who understands narcissistic abuse. And most importantly, learn to parent yourself with the kindness they never gave you. Recognize, resist, rebuild. The manipulation tactics work because they target universal human needs: love, belonging, validation. But you can meet those needs in healthy ways. You can learn what real love looks like, and it doesn't hurt like this. You now see what you couldn't see before. The charm that felt like destiny was a trap. The confusion that felt like your failure was designed. The love that felt addictive was trauma bonding. Knowledge is protection. Once you understand the pattern, you can never be fully controlled by it again. But here's what matters most. This knowledge isn't about hating narcissists. It's about protecting yourself. It's about recognizing red flags before they become chains. It's about building the boundaries that allow real intimacy to exist. You deserve love that builds you up, not love that tears you apart. Every manipulation tactic we discussed today has one antidote: your awareness. They lose power the moment you name what's happening. See, understand, choose. You are not broken. You were exploited by someone who studied your vulnerabilities and used them against you. That's not a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of their emptiness. Healing takes time. It takes support. It takes the radical act of choosing yourself over someone who never chose you. But it's possible, and you've already started by being here. Welcome to the Psyche Project. If this opened your eyes, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more. And remember, understanding yourself is the first step to freedom.